Roughly 85 million years ago, the ocean was occupied by a reptile called Mosasaurus. It was not the largest predator that had ever lived in the sea. That title belongs to something else entirely, but it was large enough that almost nothing in the water was safe from it. 17 meters long, jaws that opened wide enough to swallow a small car whole. It ate sharks. It ate other mosasaurs. It ate whatever it encountered, because in the late Cretaceous ocean, nothing had evolved a reliable defense against something that size moving at that speed. Mosasaurus is extinct. So is the thing that was larger than it. So is nearly everything in the prehistoric ocean that reached that scale. The question is why, not why they died. The end Cretaceous extinction event is well documented, and the mechanisms are not seriously disputed. The question is why they got that large in the first place. Why did evolution, in ocean after ocean, across hundreds of millions of years and multiple completely unrelated lineages, keep producing animals of extraordinary size? And why in the ocean we have today does nothing come close? The answer involves oxygen again, but in a completely different way than the Antarctic. It involves arms races between predators that had no ceiling. And it involves a set of conditions that existed for hundreds of millions of years and then stopped existing, taking the giants with them. Start with the Devonian, 400 million years ago. The ocean is almost unrecognizable. Fish have only recently evolved jaws. Before the Devonian, the dominant vertebrates in the sea were jawless filter feeders, slow and passive. The evolution of jaws changed the entire structure of the ocean's food web. Suddenly, animals could pursue and grip prey actively. And the first thing that happened when jaws appeared was that fish started getting larger. Because larger jaws could catch larger prey, and larger prey was more calorie-dense, and more calories meant more growth. The apex predator of the Devonian Ocean was Dunkleosteus terrelli. It was an armored fish, a placoderm, with a skull the size of a coffee table, and a bite force estimated at somewhere between 4,000 and 8,000 pounds per square inch. That's roughly comparable to a saltwater crocodile, which is impressive for any animal, but becomes extraordinary when you consider that Dunkleosteus achieved it without true teeth. What it had instead was self-sharpening bony plates that functioned like blades, growing continuously from the edges of the jaw and wearing against each other to maintain a cutting edge. No tooth roots to fracture, no enamel to chip, just bone against bone, continuously sharp, in a skull that could open and close faster than the human eye can track. The lower jaw would drop, and the skull would simultaneously hinge upward, creating a gape that could open in 50 milliseconds. The resulting suction pulled water, and anything in that water, directly into the mouth. It did not need to chase, it needed to be close enough that the suction reached whatever it was hunting. Dunkleosteus reached lengths of up to 8 or 9 meters, not enormous by later standards, but it was operating in a world where the next largest predators were a fraction of its size. The Devonian Ocean was an arms race just getting started, and Dunkleosteus was the first animal to pull far enough ahead that nothing around it posed a realistic threat. Then, the Devonian ended. Roughly 70% of all species went extinct in a series of extinction pulses spread across roughly 20 million years. Dunkleosteus went with them. The placoderms as a group vanished entirely. The ocean reset. What came after was not smaller. It was different and eventually larger. The Mesozoic era, the age of dinosaurs on land, was also the age of marine reptiles in the sea. And marine reptiles, across 180 million years, produced a series of body plans that converged repeatedly on the same solution. Large, streamlined, fast, with jaws capable of handling prey close to their own size. The ichthyosaurs came first, dolphin-shaped reptiles that appeared roughly 250 million years ago and occupied the same ecological niche that dolphins and tuna occupy today, but at a much larger scale. The largest ichthyosaur currently known, Shonosaurus sicaniensis, reached approximately 21 meters, longer than a school bus, and competitive with the blue whale in sheer length, though not in mass. It is one of the largest animals ever documented in the fossil record. Then the plesiosaurs, which split into two body plans that look almost nothing like each other. The long-necked plesiosaurs, Elasmosaurus and its relatives, had necks so long they made up more than half the animal's total body length, with small heads at the end designed for precision strikes into schools of fish. The short-necked plesiosaurs, the pliosaurs, went the other direction entirely. Enormous skulls, short necks, four massive flippers generating thrust from all directions simultaneously. The largest pliosaur currently known, Kronosaurus, had a skull roughly 2.7 meters long. Plesiosaurus funke, nicknamed Predator X, had a skull estimated at 3 meters and a bite force researchers estimated at 33,000 pounds per square inch. For context, that is roughly 15 times the bite force of a great white shark. These animals were not anomalies. They were the norm. The Mesozoic ocean was full of apex predators operating at sizes that have no equivalent in the modern ocean, across lineages that had no evolutionary relationship to each other, all arriving at the same general solution independently. That's convergent evolution at its most aggressive. When unrelated lineages keep producing the same answer, the environment is asking the same question. And the question the Mesozoic ocean was asking over and over was, how large can a marine predator get before the costs outweigh the benefits? The answer, apparently, was very large indeed. Then there is the animal that makes all of these look almost reasonable. Otodus megalodon, the species colloquially called Megalodon, lived from roughly 23 million years ago to approximately 3.6 million years ago. It was a shark. Not a direct ancestor of the great white, despite what popular media suggests. Its lineage diverged from the great white's ancestor tens of millions of years earlier. But it occupied the same apex predator role, at a scale the great white doesn't approach. Size estimates for Megalodon have been revised repeatedly as methodology has improved. The current consensus among researchers puts the largest individuals at somewhere between 15 and 20 meters, with some estimates pushing toward 20 for the largest specimens. Mass estimates range from 30 to 100 metric tons, depending on body proportion assumptions, which remain contested because sharks don't preserve well. Cartilage doesn't fossilize reliably, so what we have are mostly teeth and vertebral centra. The teeth are enough to build a picture. Megalodon teeth reach 18 centimeters in diagonal length, about the size of a human hand. The root structure indicates attachment to a jaw that, at full scale, was wide enough for a tall adult human to stand upright inside it. The serrated edges were designed for cutting through large prey items, not just puncturing them. This was an animal hunting things large enough that it needed to carve pieces off rather than swallow whole. Its prey was whales. Specifically, the smaller baleen whales that had proliferated in Miocene oceans as filter feeding became one of the dominant strategies in the open sea. Whale bones from the Miocene are found with bite marks that match megalodon tooth geometry. The attack pattern inferred from bone damage suggests it targeted the chest cavity and flippers, disabling the animal's ability to swim before consuming it. This is not ambush predation. This is coordinated, targeted hunting of animals that were themselves enormous by an animal that was larger in open ocean. Nothing in the modern ocean does this at anything approaching this scale. Megalodon went extinct approximately 3.6 million years ago. The leading hypothesis is that its prey base collapsed. The large whale species it depended on either went extinct themselves or shifted to colder water that Megalodon, as a warm water species, couldn't follow. A secondary factor may have been competition from ancestral great whites and early orcas, which were more flexible hunters capable of operating across a wider range of conditions. The ocean it left behind has never replaced it. So why did the prehistoric ocean produce all of this, and why doesn't the modern ocean? Part of the answer is time. The Paleozoic and Mesozoic oceans ran for hundreds of millions of years under conditions that, while not static, were stable enough across long periods to allow arms races between large predators and large prey to run to completion. When predators got larger, prey got larger. When prey got larger, predators got larger again. There was no external interruption fast enough to cut the cycle off before it reached its upper limits. Part of the answer is oxygen. Paleozoic and Mesozoic atmospheres had significantly higher oxygen levels than today's. Some estimates put Carboniferous atmospheric oxygen at 35% compared to today's 21%. Higher atmospheric oxygen means higher dissolved oxygen in the ocean, which means the size ceiling for marine animals was higher than it is today. The Antarctic polar gigantism effect running globally for hundreds of millions of years. And part of the answer is that extinction events kept resetting the board. Each major extinction killed off the largest animals disproportionately. Large body size is a liability in catastrophic environmental disruption because large animals need more food, reproduce more slowly, and can't adapt behaviorally as quickly. After each reset, the surviving lineages had to rebuild the top of the food chain from scratch, and they did. But the rebuilding took tens of millions of years. The modern ocean is roughly 66 million years post-Cretaceous extinction. The last time the ocean had a true apex predator at Mesozoic scale was when Megalodon was alive, 3.6 million years ago. We are, in geological terms, in the early stages of a recovery. The ocean hasn't had time to rebuild to the scale it reached before. Whether it ever will is a different question entirely. The conditions that produced Megalodon, the pliosaurs, the giant ichthyosaurs, stable warm oceans, high atmospheric oxygen, abundant large prey, and millions of years of uninterrupted arms race, are not the conditions of the ocean we have now or the ocean we are building toward. The prehistoric ocean was an experiment in how large biology can get. The experiment ran for 400 million years, produced answers that are still difficult to fully believe even with the fossil evidence in hand, and then ended. What we have now is the aftermath.